Hi everyone, my name is Hannah and it's another day of crafting. If you watched my previous video, I mentioned that my husband and I are about to celebrate our 2-year wedding anniversary. So today, instead of making a new craft, I wanted to share all the DIYs I did for our wedding. Let's talk about themes. So the first thing is colors. I decided to go with pink, yellow, and blue. As you can see with our wedding party, our second component was occupation. So I used to be a high school math teacher, and then my husband is an optometrist. So we incorporated a lot of those elements into our wedding. And then finally, being eco-friendly was very important to us. So you'll see that in how we crafted. Those are the three things that we considered. So I have a lot of crafts to share with y'all today, so I decided to just go in chronological order from before the ceremony, cocktail hour, reception, and then some crafts I made after the wedding. So the first project to make an exposure is my gift to Wilson. So before the ceremony, when the wedding party was getting ready, we exchanged our gifts then. So let me show y'all what I made Wilson. I decided to design this book for him, and I actually ordered this book through Shutterfly, but all the pages I made myself. So quick backstory, Wilson and we were long distance for a couple months at the beginning of our relationship, and so our main mode of communication was through this messaging app called Line, which we actually still use a lot today. And Line is known for their cute stickers, so this is called a Line love story. I captured all of our very critical conversations. I screenshotted from my phone all of our conversations, that some cringy conversations and some serious ones. A lot of screenshots here, and I organized the screenshots by chapters. Apparently Wilson loved it so much that he even had a mini photo shoot with this Line book, and even though this took a lot of time, super worth it. I thought it turned out really great. Let's get into the actual wedding. When guests arrive, they go into this lobby area, and in the center of the lobby is a welcome table. So for the welcome table, since Wilson and I really love sweets, I painted 3 canvases with desserts on them, and our idea was to have our guests stamp their thumb, or I also made little foam pads if they didn't want to use their thumb, and stamp sprinkles on them. So we made an ice cream cone, a donut, and a cupcake, yes. For materials, I used watercolor, which was interesting because, let me show you how the canvases look now. So, I don't know if y'all can tell, but actually the sprinkles have, they've spread out, and they're not as dark as they were. And unfortunately, it has blurred out some of the signatures. So I'm not sure if it was because I used watercolor, and then maybe the stamp ink pad was also water-based. It just didn't mix well together. So that's something I'm really sad about. If you are going to do a stamp sign-in for your guests, I highly suggest testing it out first on a smaller area. Lessons learned. I can still see a lot of the names, but I wish I could see all of the names. Then after guests signed in, they would walk into the chapel hall, and so before they get in, I made this sign to go with our eco-friendly themed. I made this world, and I'm not very happy with my calligraphy skills. I'm not a big calligraphy person, so I feel like I'm not very proud of this part. As you can see, I did not keep the sign. Let's move on from that one. When guests enter the chapel hall, my ushers gave them a program. So this was a really easy DIY. I just used Word and designed the wedding program, the wedding party, and then on the back we added our worship song lyrics, and then I just threw in some hand-drawn flower petals, pink, yellow, and blue, of course. Very straightforward DIY here. This next craft is not aesthetic, but it's very functional. I really wanted to be showered in flower petals as we walked down the aisle. As a former high school math teacher, I had a lot of messed up copies and my stack of scratch paper was growing. So one day while my students were taking a test, I started folding these origami baskets, and we put one of these baskets full of flower petals under each aisle seat, and that was pretty much it. And as you can see in the photos, you can barely tell. You can't even see that these are factoring problems. But another way to reuse, and the main part is the flowers, which looked really pretty. Let's get to cocktail hour. So for our alcohol, we had bartenders, but we also had to provide our own alcohol. We decided to get all of our beer and cider locally from Austin. So my vision was to create a menu with the map of Austin and star all of the breweries. And my friend Kat basically turned my vision into reality and then more. She created the map menu, but then also recreated the famous Greetings from Austin mural with our pictures, and it looks so cute. Shout out to Kat for this. I don't think I could have made it like this. I absolutely love it. Unfortunately, we didn't get a picture of it, but here it is. The next craft I'm not as excited about. So for our seating chart, what happened was I printed every table out, and then I was hoping to make something cute, like using string and pinning each table, something like that. But what ended up happening was I ran out of time, and then the weekend of the wedding, I asked my ushers. I gave them 2 posters and I gave them all of the tables, and I asked them to glue it to the posters and write something at the top. Not their fault at all, completely my fault, but because I didn't spend enough time on the seating chart, I feel like it's the piece that I was the least proud of. Let's move on from that one. Our centerpieces were reused wine bottles. So over the years, I had been collecting wine bottles from different events and parties. I just asked if I could keep the bottles. And then by the time we got married, I had about 30-ish bottles, and I just handed them to the florist, and they created these gorgeous centerpieces, which at the end of the wedding, we told our guests, you can take these home, and some of them were carrying like 4 wine bottles. Oh, another thing about the wine bottles was that we didn't even take off the label. It didn't take away from the aesthetic of the centerpiece, so that was something that we got to save time on as well. For the actual table numbers, I used the Snellen charts as inspiration, and I found a font on defont.com and created our table numbers with decreasing font size for each row, and I glued them on a foam board so that they'd be sturdy, and then we simply just leaned them on the wine bottle. So I thought those turned out really well. For our wedding favors, I had always wanted to give our guests reusable boba straws, and so thank you to my mother-in-law who had found these really cute boba straws and boba straw holders from Taiwan. And as you can see, some of them have mason jars on them, and then others just have regular boba cups on them. And unfortunately, each boba straw came with a plastic wrap on it, so it kind of cancels out the whole reducing waste thing. But for each one, I created a little sticker with some tips on how to be eco-friendly, and then we just stuck them on each straw. Some of the tables had children, so I made these little kits with markers, crayons, stickers. As a teacher, you have so many of these, and I had a lot of old ones, especially with these kits that are for the entertainment of kids. You don't need new items, so I just put all of these together, and I had a couple parents come up to me and say how thankful they were that we just thought of the kids and just made sure that there was something for them to do. Another thing that I didn't DIY, but I wanted to share was during cocktail hour, I got these giant bubble wands from Facebook Marketplace, and the kids got to just make these huge bubbles. Some adults did too, so that was also fun for them. Lastly, every table had 2 menus, and for the menu, I hand drew each item on the menu to match the actual food. And then on the front it says Japeng, which means let's eat in Taiwanese. And then on the back I also added my mom's cake, which let me talk about right now. This is not my DIY, but I have to shout out my mom because she made this cake all by herself and it was amazing. My mom's cake is a part of my childhood. Every birthday, every event, my mom always had her famous fruit sponge cake. Yeah, she spent a lot of time on this. She stayed up the night before and it turned out amazing. Also, thank you to the ushers for helping my mom with the cake. I know that she was kind of stressed that day and I'm so thankful that y'all were there to give her a helping hand. Okay, I am so excited to get to this part. DIY photo booth props. This was a huge hit at the wedding. Let me just show you a couple of snapshots. I actually still have them. I don't know when I'm gonna use them again, but I also couldn't throw them away. The first type of DIY photo booth prop. These headshots, so fun. So Wilson and I, for one of our dates, we went out and took headshots of each other with different poses, and then I turned them into these fun photo booth props, and I know that our friends had so much fun with these. Let me show y'all a couple of pictures with them right now. The next type of photo booth prop were our talk bubbles. So let's start with these. So our optometry-themed one, Dr. Hung says I need more glasses, and then our math teacher one, Miss Lee says the limit does not exist. Then we have our imaginary number, I love you, and then our I love you. I'm very proud of this next one here. If you're an optometrist, I think you'll really like this one. It's a phoropter. If you've been to an eye exam, you've definitely seen one of these really interesting looking machines. You've also had to use it, you know, answering those kind of stressful questions, one or two, you know. The optometrist at the wedding had a lot of fun with this one. Okay, one more. This is for all the math teachers at the wedding. A TI-84 calculator. I just had to make one. So this was super fun. In terms of like the actual station, I also used to be a nanny, so I asked the family that I helped out with, I asked if I could borrow their baby bottle racks. They look like grass, and I just stuck the photo booth props in the grass and they held up very well. Another item in our photo booth station was this scrapbook. I highly recommend a photo booth scrapbook. That way there's a place for your guests to write you notes. Another thing about this scrapbook, because there were so many pages left over, I actually got to add in a lot of the other elements of the wedding. And so now this scrapbook has become an all-encompassing wedding scrapbook. So let me show y'all what I mean by that. I ended up reordering some of the pages, and now I've added the wedding cards that people gave us. I've also added any part of our wedding that I could preserve. I tried to add it in the scrapbook. So here's our wedding program. Lots of our friends. Our ring bearers made us these signs, and I included that in our scrapbook. Our vows, alcohol menu. Our menu. I took our light box and I just put these in our scrapbook as well. All right, if you're Taiwanese, you will understand. We got a bunch of hongbals or red envelopes, and there are so many sweet blessings, and I just wanted to make sure that we recorded all of them. So again, I highly recommend having a photo booth scrapbook at your wedding, because not only can your guests leave you sweet notes in it, but you can also turn it into your all-encompassing wedding scrapbook, which I love. Look how thick it is. Finally, the last thing that I made, this was after the wedding, was I dried our bouquets, and I ended up putting them in these. This is actually the wine that we served at our wedding. So white wine and red wine. So I'm glad that we were able to also preserve these as well. So that's it. That's all of the crafts that I made for our wedding. One thing that I wish I made that I didn't even think about was posting the schedule of the day. So when is cocktail hour? When is the reception? When is cake? When is exit? Either emailed it out beforehand or made a poster of it and put it in front of the reception hall. I think as a guest, it's just nice to know when things are happening. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a like. If you have any questions or would like to see any more wedding content, let me know, and maybe I'll make another video. So hopefully y'all got some ideas and inspiration. I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!